Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the roundtable discussion on how OKRs help you run a remote team. I'm Vetri Valor, the CEO and founder of Ally.io. I will be your host for the next hour. But before we get started, some light housekeeping. A little bit about OKRs for anyone who's new to OKRs. OKRs create alignment, transparency, and accountability across every level of the organization and give leaders insight into risks, misalignment, and opportunities. And that alignment is even more important with remote work. To discuss this today, we'll be joined by some incredible speakers who have a wealth of knowledge to share about managing remote workflows. And I likely speak for many of you on this call when I say I have tons of questions for them. Please do add your questions as well in the comments. I cannot promise we'll get to all of them, but we'll do our best to address some of them. Now, to get to the introductions, I'm very excited to the guests, and I'll ask each of them share a little bit about themselves, starting with Better Cloud's VP of Financial Planning and Analysis, Joe. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do at Better Cloud.
Awesome. Thank you, Vetri. I'm excited to be here. So I have been at Better Cloud for 5 years, and I'm in charge of planning, both financial and operations, data engineering, our BI team, and business systems. Just some background, Better Cloud is the leader in SaaS ops, and really SaaS ops is a practice that enables IT to discover, manage, and secure their SaaS environments, right? I think it's undoubtable that SaaS is kind of the norm now. Companies use tons of different SaaS applications to drive productivity in their organization, and Better Cloud is that fabric that helps visibility around how their organization is using SaaS and ensuring that they're following best practices around security and management.
Miranda, can you share a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so excuse me, as you said, VP of Human Resources at FormStack. I've been with the organization for coming up on 7 years. I was the 23rd employee, and we now have just over 230. So we are, and we're also, something unique about us is we're, prior to COVID, 60% remote. So, employees located all over the United States. A little bit about FormStack. We empower anyone to quickly and easily build custom forms, create documents, and collect e-signatures, all without any specialized skills or coding. So we launched in 2006, and we're trusted by, I think, our over 22,000 organizations worldwide. Some to note are the NHL, Netflix, Twitter. And really the goal is to digitize information, automate workflows, and transform processes. Yeah, so just landed on Inc.'s Best Workplaces of 2020. So we are what I would consider a bit of a subject matter expert on remote working and building up and nurturing remote teams.
Wow, that's fantastic. And finally, Ashish Sharma, the VP of Corporate Strategy at Rakuten. Ashish, thank you for joining us today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Rakuten.
Thank you for having me on, Vetri. So yeah, let me start with a little bit of background on Rakuten. Rakuten may be better known to a lot of folks as the Amazon of Japan. Which is a great way for us, for you to know about us. But our ecosystem in Japan sort of encompasses much more than e-commerce. And while we're relatively new in Americas, our ambition over time is to recreate a very strong ecosystem of services for our members here in the Americas as well. Our tentpole business in the Americas today is Rakuten Rewards, which is a leading cashback provider. We have tens of millions of extremely loyal members and buyers, and our GMV, which is in the tens of billions of dollars, places us as the fourth largest B2C e-commerce platform in the nation. So we have a tremendous responsibility to our merchant partners in this sort of time, as well as to many consumers who rely on us for cashback and on identifying discovering new and interesting places for them to shop. And a little bit about me, I've been with Rakuten for a little over 2 years now. My background is primarily in retail, and I'm very excited to be part of a technology company that is disrupting retail and bringing tremendous value to consumers and to merchants. And I head up corporate strategy for Rakuten.
Fantastic. Awesome. I'll kick it off with a few questions. And maybe we can start with Miranda first. Miranda, can you share something more about your business and more specifically how you're adjusting to COVID-19 challenges? Any quick pivots?
Yeah. So prior to COVID, as I mentioned, we were already operating 60% remotely, employees all over the country, contractors all over the globe. But that it doesn't mean that switching to remote didn't come with 100% remote, didn't come with what we'll call challenges, both at an employee level and a business level. So we pulsed our team to find out how we could work healthier, how FormStack could support them. Things like adjusted schedules, encouraging and supporting self-care and mental health, and more communication, transparent communication from leadership. They've helped us navigate it from that employee perspective. I would say from a business perspective, some things we've had to adjust to are being more conservative with cash, right? Every business is kind of in that mindset right now, not knowing what the economy looks like going forward. How can you prepare the business to tackle that, whether it be a fast recovery or a slow recovery? Restricting travel, right? No brainer. And then learning every day how we can further support our customers. Our customers now have new needs. We have potential customers that we wouldn't even think new products like ours, but now helping us to help them solve their business problems that they have as a result of COVID. So one unexpected surprise that we've seen is an uptick in our e-sign product. With COVID, businesses need to digitize what once was an in-person paper manual process. The good news is they're looking to us to help bring those things online and to bring those things into the digital world, if you will, which is streamlining a lot of their operations and paper processes. And we're grateful for that. It was definitely a positive, unexpected challenge that we're working through right now.
So just in terms of scale, BetterCloud's right around 300 employees. And we've been, right, everyone's impacted by COVID in some way. And for us, we were basically 100% in offices, with Atlanta, New York, and San Francisco being our main hubs. And the move to remote was actually quite flawless from a technology perspective. We're 100% SaaS business. So in a lot of ways, it was just new location, same laptop, and everything kind of works. The impacts to BetterCloud, right? Everyone has, I'm sure, things that are going well as a result, right? And then things that are not. For BetterCloud, right? Companies have been thrust into needing to adopt more cloud applications, which is obviously a long-term headwind for a company like BetterCloud. But a lot of the things that we've been focusing on is how do we keep employees engaged in this new environment? How do we make sure that people are taking care of their own mental health, right? There's a lot of folks who are home now with kids and significant others and sometimes tight quarters. So how do we make sure that we're flexible in terms of people's work arrangements? And then also, how do we keep the organization focused on the goals that we know we need to achieve, and then also how do we adjust those goals with COVID and kind of the things that are going on from a macro perspective. And I think we had 2 remote employees.
Well, it sounds like it was flawless. He has nothing to learn from me. It sounds like they just are, in their houses working.
We definitely have a lot to learn in terms of how I'm interested from your perspective, like in terms of we're doing company meetings 2 times a week just to keep some cadence of how we keep employees, how we get everyone to show up and hear the same message and stuff.
Yeah.
But we definitely are eager to learn other best practices in terms of like what are other ways to keep other large groups of people in the know and connected to what we're trying to do as an organization. So I'd love to hear how you do that at FormStack.
I have a super simple response to that, and we actually at the onset of all of this, where you're trying to kind of learn what you need to react to, we had a monthly all hands meeting where we'd have team OKR updates, org OKR updates, and just company relevant information. But we realized that we needed to increase that, and so what we did as a leadership team was we developed a communication cadence. On Monday, it is procedural and process updates that come from me. On Wednesdays, it's operational. So we're sharing financial health of the business. We're sharing what our headcount looks like. We're sharing what our revenue is, and that comes from our COO. And then on Friday, we share an inspirational message, which comes from our CEO. So that's sort of a, an end cap to the week to send you out on a good note. And those range from him sharing a haiku that he wrote to things like, these are the focuses of the business and we're in a good spot, and making sure that he is illustrating and educating and informing the organization that, it's not just lip service. This, we're in a great time for the business right now, and we need everybody around the table and want them to be well and do well.
I like that. The structure of it is, I think, is just as important as as the message itself, just so people know what they can expect when from who, so that people have something to kind of pivot off of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think there are a few things in there which seemed familiar, things that we are doing as well. Now, we traditionally had sort of a Monday morning meeting as part of Rakuten. It's part of Rakuten culture, which is fantastic, but it's a great way for all the employees to start off the week, hearing sometimes from Miki himself, who's based out in Japan, our founder and CEO of Rakuten Inc., and then hearing from the leadership team here in the Americas. But we've certainly seen that the engagement and the kind of questions that we get from employees has changed dramatically, given the situation we are in. And then for the Rakuten Rewards business specifically, so it's one of we replicate that by having an all hands Friday. So where we get to see products and all kinds of questions from the employees, and we've also increased and added a few more touch points within the week. Interestingly, we felt the need at the start of when we moved to remote working. We did these every week, sort of an ad hoc meeting of a senior leadership and the employee base to just get a pulse on, hey, how is everyone doing? And then we've not felt the need to repeat them week after week last month or so. But we have a lot of other activities that we've got as well. Happy hours every other Friday. Things like contests for the most innovative, for example. Just forums for to see familiar faces who you may not see in the normal course of the day, given the meetings that we have, but you are used to seeing before, across the office. Just making sure that some of those relationships is maintained and are accessed. Yeah, so on the internal side, I feel like a couple of months in, we're in a good point. It's quite incredible to see how quickly everyone has adopted to this new way of working. But as Rakuten, we are also at the forefront of retail, and we have our stakeholders. Include our large merchant partners, as well as the tens of millions of shoppers, our members, right? And we owe a sense of responsibility towards them as well. So that's where we have seen a lot of impact to the business, in the sense that the move to online has certainly benefited us tremendously, right? As stores, unfortunately, weren't open, weren't available for a lot of people. A lot of shopping turned online, and we were there to help our merchant partners as well as our members with the best places to shop. But at the same time, impact to categories such as travel, to fashion-specific categories as well, which form a big part of what consumers turn to Rakuten for. Saw somewhat of an impact to our business. But overall, the move towards online, as well as the unique member base that we have, our buyers tend to be sort of heavy e-commerce shoppers, right? And they tend to over-index on factors such as household income, home ownership, and others, they've been less impacted. So it's been very interesting for us to parse out the category impact that we are seeing out in the market versus the impact we are seeing on our platform through the lens of move to online and through the lens of the unique member base that we have. So reacting to that has been sort of a big part of the work that we've been doing. So pivoting to new products, to new projects, changing course midstream between what we were aiming for the year, and kind of pivoting towards the new categories where we've seen demand explode. Those have been some of the sort of more interesting pivots that we've had to make during the year.
Before COVID, was Rakuten mostly all in the office and in the US at least, or was there a work from home culture?
No, we've had pockets of work from home employees, and we have many satellite offices in the US as well. We are spread out, everywhere from the Bay Area. Bay Area itself, we have 2 offices down to San Diego, and then up in Washington State, and then all the way across the country from locations in Salt Lake City, New York, Boston, and a few other smaller offices. So we've had a lot of we've had a good culture around teleconferencing or video conferencing. So folks who are somewhat used to the concept of video conferencing before COVID, but no, most people used to be in an office. So that definitely has been a big change for us.
Got it. What do you expect that when we're on the other side of the pandemic, do you expect people to be back in the office, or do you think that that's going to change how Rakuten hires and in terms of the a more distributed workforce?
Sure, that's such a great question, and I'd love to hear your and Miranda's reaction to that as well. But I'm happy to share what we are seeing. So interestingly, we've also been running a survey of our members, just as a tangent, on activities that are happening during COVID due to the nature of the situation of the situation we all find ourselves in, and which of these activities will stick post-COVID, right? Because they've introduced folks to kind of a new and more efficient way of working. So working remotely is actually one of the 2025 activities that we are tracking through our survey. And I feel like the response from our employees mirrors what we are hearing from the general public, which is that clearly the adoption of video conferencing has gone through the roof. And there is a sizable portion, still less than half, but a sizable portion of folks who feel that video conferencing will be a key part, or will stay on as a big part of the way they work. Now, it'll be interesting to see how these sentiments change and track over time, because as you know, with consumer sentiment dictates a lot of sort of responses. And so it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. But at this time, our employees and what we're hearing from the public is that a lot of these behaviors will stick, especially around video conferencing and working remotely. I'd love to hear how you guys are thinking about it as well.
Yeah, I'd say, being that we were over half remote before, even those that were located in an area where we have an office, they weren't required to come in. And so from us, it's been work from where you're most productive. If that's in an office and you're close to one, great. If it's from a coffee shop, that's wonderful too. You're an adult and you know how to be productive and how to work from a place that helps you to do that. And so for us, we will maintain our offices once we're on the other side of this, because there are folks, myself included, that like to be around other people to get their work done. We hire greener sales folks, and they benefit greatly from being in the same room and hearing conversations from other sales folks. And so there'll be an office there for them to do that as well. But we've always encouraged, again, work from where you're productive. And if it's, in an office, great. And if it's at home, great too.
That all makes sense. We're better at BetterCloud. We're trying to figure out what we've always had a big in office culture, and we like getting everyone together, and we're moving quickly, and we like the kind of cross pollination that occurs, at the lunch table, at the water cooler, you name your metaphor. But we're trying to figure out that to your points, Ashish, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's some people who are like, it's hard for me to be productive at home. And there's some people who are like, I've never been so productive in my life. So I think we're going to that was the point of my question, to hear from your both perspective, because we're trying to learn from other experts of what's going to be the right approach on the other side of this.
Some of it, I think, too, is as funny as it sounds. What I'm learning is, this is the introverts' time to shine. They're home in their own environment where they feel comfortable, and they're not distracted during the day by, people wanting to come up and talk to them. And that's great. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach, because frankly, no one person is a one size fits all approach. Right.
Sure.
And so some things we've done at FormStack to replicate, if you will, that in-office culture is, we have the fun events like Ashish mentioned before, but we also, we have Slack channels that are dedicated to certain things. We have, everyone has a Zoom account at FormStack. And so they're able to say, hey, can you jump on a call really quick and talk to me about this? I've personally, with other members of the leadership team, will have sessions where we just work together on a video call, and we're doing other things, but we're still talking to each other about the thing that we have to work on together. So I think there are ways that you can replicate that. While it may feel a little different at first, people are adaptable and they adjust quickly. And I think, they're also really good at speaking up about how to do that as well. And oftentimes some of our best ideas have been from asking the group, how would you replicate this, or how would you do this?
For sure. That makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
I think echoing a lot of, what I was hearing from you guys, I mean, on a productivity scale, I mean, I think the non-scientific way of understanding it, I mean, we think that productivity may actually have improved at this point, because there is greater focus, there is less distractions, and you're saving time on commute and sort of all of those things. So productivity actually is probably greater, at least for us, is what we're seeing. But what people are missing is that office culture, Miranda, that you were talking about. People miss that in-person interactions, being able to meet folks across teams that they may not be working with, right? But folks that sit around you. It's some of those in-person interactions that people are really craving and missing. And that is, why people want to come back to the office, because it's hard to create sort of an in-office culture. We try and do our best that we can, but it is hard to replicate that same feeling of being around people, and more than employees, but friends, right? Friends that you've made at work.
Got it. And Ashish, can you also share a little bit about your OKR journey, kind of when you started thinking about it, why, and all the way through today?
Absolutely, Vetri, happy to. So our OKR journey maybe started a little over a year ago, and frankly, one of the so we are still fairly new in our OKR journey, and one of the selfish reasons I wanted to be on this call was to actually learn from yourself and Joe and Miranda, who are further along than us on the OKR journey. But for us, we had always operated in an annual planning sort of mode at Rakuten, which was a little bit more top down. Right. And the question in front of us in the leadership team was, we've hired all of these really smart people. Why do we keep telling them what to do? Why not have them come up with the right products and projects that they should be working on? So the role of a leadership team in our minds was more to set the North Star for the business, lay out the right goals, address them as in the OKR format, because that has significant advantages over the traditional top-down annual operating plan sort of a model that we had been working with before, and then really bring out the creativity and the thinking, unlock that potential that exists within our organization. So in parallel, we had also moved to our tribes and squads model, which truly empowers autonomous teams to take ownership, right, and drive results that are meaningful for us. So these two things happened in parallel, and because they are going towards sort of the same business objective. So at that point, we started evaluating, what would be the best way for us to bring OKRs to the organization. But you were part of some of the conversations we had where we were discussing some philosophical questions around OKRs, around, should we truly use OKRs as stretch goals or sort of closer to what we've been doing before? How do we roll out OKRs, not just to prod dev and engineering and organizations, but broadly encompassing all business partners within it? and sort of the cadence and processes that we set around it. So our journey, we're still new in our journey. This was the first year. This is the first year we've published OKRs. We've rolled out OKRs to the organization, where our tribes and squads have then taken them on and come back with their own sets of OKRs. And now we find ourselves in COVID, where all of the great work we had done at the start of the year, we are essentially having to redo and repivot to head in a different direction.
Miranda, can you share a little bit about your journey and where it is now?
Yeah. So we're in the just post-toddler phase of OKRs. And so we've been at it for, I want to say 4 years. That sounds about right. Don't quote me, anyone who's watching. But so we, like many other businesses, we realized we needed to align our business objectives with our team's objectives, the bigger and more distributed we became. And so we looked at a few things, talked about stretch goals, talked about SMART goals, and landed on OKRs. Started by reading a book, read Google's playbook, tried to use the sports analogy and translate that into technology. Our goal at the onset was, let's follow this to a T. Let's think about this process and how it can impact our business, but not mess it up, if that makes sense. And I think, it was rocky at first, not realizing the power OKRs have to truly suit the needs of your business, and that it's a framework, it's not a rule book. And we found that over time we needed to adapt them to fit our needs. And so, tech's always trying to reverse engineer things. We want to make things different. We want to make them better. And so we made a few adjustments to the traditional example. And we still hold on to some of those things. So for example, we don't set themes in our vision each year from the top down. Actually becomes the org level annual objectives for the year. And so everything will ladder up to that. We admit and embrace that we're still learning though. So the end goal of OKRs is super clear, right? You want to see quickly top down and bottom up that the organization's all aimed in the same direction, same priorities. Everybody knows what they're working toward. A problem we needed to solve was how manual that was at the onset. So we did what any tech company founded by an engineer does, and we built our own product for it. It was called Gel. And Gel was an OKR software and also a daily stand-up software. And we used that for quite some time. And the product manager or the founder of the product sat right behind me in an office. And so he'd often say, I'm going to take my founder hat off and I'm put my customer success hat on, and we're going to have a conversation about how to improve that product. But the business was growing faster than that product could grow. And so we got to a point where in scale that it didn't work for us anymore. And so we reverted to Google Sheets. That's sometimes the best idea, and sometimes that's really the worst idea. And for us, it was the worst idea, right? Everybody's got a different template. Everybody's got different calculations. You have to redo the template every quarter and redistribute it, and then ask people to manually calculate and manually, update on your progress. And it was just really, really cumbersome. We weren't able to track and see if OKRs truly were impacting the business in a positive way. And so like mid last year to late last year, we started looking at reintroducing a software. Our biggest goal or objective in the software was we needed reporting functions. We needed something that would show a trend upward over time, and where we could drill down and see, are people setting the right objectives? Are people aligned appropriately? Are teams communicating? Do we know where these things stand? And we found Ally. We piloted it with some of our, I'll say highly bought in teams. So product, obviously, they were super excited about it at the onset. We asked marketing to do it as well. And we rolled it out to everyone in January of this year. So not new to OKRs, but somewhat new to Ally. I will say though that the Ally team has been amazingly helpful in sharing insights, best practices. They've done some hand-holding. I am an annoying customer. I will say that. I have a lot of questions. I want to know how to root this in our business, because I do think OKRs have the potential to truly transform your business in a lot of ways that other goal setting methods don't. And so I continue to beat that drum, talk about integrations. We want to talk about, everybody integrated with Slack so that on Fridays you're doing a quick check-in. I had a conversation with Chris of Ally about how his sales team is using it, because sales is only focused on revenue goals, right? And the traditional OKR method says you shouldn't have revenue goals as OKRs, and your sales team is like, well, then I'm not going to do OKRs. And so you've got to get creative and think through how to do that in a way that you get your Salesforce excited about. And so talking through Salesforce integration, so those things are automated for them and managers can quickly get in and see the progress that's being made or where the stalls are. And they can talk about those things in a much more strategic way than just checking a box and saying, yep, I had a one-on-one. It went great. OKRs are fine. So that was very long-winded, but that's kind of where we are in our journey right now.
But 4 years, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible. And thanks, Miranda. Our team feels great about our partnership. I hear phenomenal things about how you are actually showing us a lot of insights. We are learning from you as well in this process. Thank you.
Thanks. I love Akshat. If he's watching, hi.
All right. Joe, do you want to share about your OKR journey? I know it's relatively short, at least compared to Miranda's, but you had a fascinating journey too.
Yeah, sure. I'll be brief because Miranda and Ashish hit on a lot of the reasons how did we land on OKRs. But for Better Cloud, we've always had a goal-oriented culture. We've always, been an outcome-oriented type of company where it's like, let's focus on the things that are important. And we've always been data-driven. So I think in a lot of ways we had all of the pieces there. And then what we needed was some unifying fabric, if you will, that helps develop like a breathing apparatus for the company so that everyone understands how do their outcomes or how do their OKRs ladder into what the organization is trying to do. And for us, about 2 years ago, we landed on, setting a vision statement and then setting strategies that help, push that vision statement forward, and then creating goals below it. And through that process, similar to Miranda, we were reading around for different, goal setting constructs that have been successful for other orgs. And that's where we also landed on OKRs. And we've used two different external parties, kind of mom and pop shop consultants, if you will, that have been using OKRs for much longer than us. And they allowed us to kind of get it up and running in a way that was kind of lightweight and the right approach for Better Cloud. And this past year was actually our first year where we're on a Jan 31 fiscal year. So on February 5th, we got in front of the whole company and we were like, this is our vision statement. And we've spent the last 6 months kind of workshopping it and we feel great about it. These are our strategies or priorities that help promote the vision statement. And then here's our annual goals for the year, our OKRs that we need to go get after. And we then create quarterly OKRs under those. And we obviously felt amazing in February. We're like, we've never been so aligned. The entire org was an ally. The level of transparency, we're a very transparent organization, but we've never had a higher level of transparency. And then like everyone else, right, COVID hit us in the face, and we're adapting now, and we're figuring out what goals need to be reset, what strategies need to be rethought. And right, we're kind of at the middle of that process, I would say, and we're always going to be evaluating. So that's kind of a bit about our journey, and also the way that we use OKRs in the organization.
Got it. Beautiful. And how are you actually looking at using OKRs to navigate COVID-19, Joe? I mean, is it somewhere you have to kind of rethink all the OKRs, or how are you reacting to this?
Yeah. It's a good question. I would say our approach to OKRs actually is unchanged, which is we're still taking the vision, strategy, annual results, quarterly results approach. And certain goals, just like we had an entire goal around in-person events, which, right, we're all shelter in place for the most part. It's not, that's impossible. We can't focus there this year. So that goal, right, needs to be rethought. And, you know, where appropriate, we're adjusting things. Some things are going up, some things are going down, and we're gonna continue to stretch the organization in the right places to ensure that we stay on. It's all about staying on track for our vision statement and making sure that we're continuing to promote that. So we just continue to test all our goals through that lens and make the adjustments as necessary based on the environment.
Got it. Ashish, it looks like you are actually doing quite a bit of analysis and rethinking, right? You have also a lot of data coming in from your customers as well. So how are you navigating COVID with OKRs?
Yeah, I think in the broad strokes, it's very similar to how Joe laid it out, right? I mean, we've had to rethink all of our goals. Now, goal setting is one of the most important and I guess one of the most difficult things to do with OKRs, right? And that for us was going to be a new muscle that we had to build, right, going in, for teams to understand how to set, stretch goals. What is an appropriate goal to set? Looking at past trends, looking at external benchmarks, being smart about what a goal should be. So we had literally just done a first pass of that when this unprecedented situation has changed all of the goals which we had set for us, which themselves I think were goals that we were not entirely confident in, right? Because we've not had this muscle of setting OKR specific goals. We can set goals at the top level, at the business KPI level, but translating them down to OKR specific metrics was something that our teams were just starting to work with. And now with the business changing, so dramatically, we have to change our areas of focus, exactly as Joe mentioned, and also change the goals that we set for them, which is also hazy now because we don't have a good place to go to understand, the trends that will manifest themselves. So we're doing a lot of work around consumer insights for example, that I mentioned to you, trying to learn how consumer sentiment is evolving and staying on top of that, especially sentiment of our own members, and trying to get a peek or trying to get some learning by looking at regions, geographies which are further ahead of us, China, for example. Now we have to be smart and understand that not all trends can be directly translated. There are some nuances around socioeconomic setup which are relevant for us, but essentially taking the learnings from that and translating it through that lens. So we're trying to be smart about sort of any and every data point that we can get that can inform us on how can we be smart about the new goals that we are trying to set for ourselves.
Got it. And how about you, Miranda? Given you're already heavily remote and seems like things have not really had to change much, right? Except for some of the initiatives you talked about. How are you navigating this with OKRs?
Us specifically?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you cut out a little bit. I think for us, OKRs provide a sense of normalcy. I think in a world that's not normal right now, right? To us, it means it's a means to communicate how we're doing as teams. It's a way to provide focus in what feels like a very chaotic world. It illustrates that while everything around us is changing, we're still the same business. We're still focused on the same things, and we're all working toward common goals. So, we're keeping that layer of communication intact for us. So every month during our monthly, we call them stack meetings, but they're all hands meetings. Teams at the beginning of a quarter, the org level will talk about what the OKRs are for the quarter, just to provide some insight to everyone. And then at the mid-month or mid-quarter and end of the quarter, teams will actually talk about their OKRs, how they're doing, what their roadblocks are. And so for us, it's we've created templates where everybody has to use the same one. It's an Ally screenshot, and then they'll provide sort of an executive summary or how they feel about that information. And we invite people to ask questions. So if you see a team has an entire list of OKRs that are all at risk, why is that? What's going on? Is that a result of COVID, or is that a result of something else? And so for us, we're able to see, again, how COVID's impacting the business, but not necessarily just financially. You know, for example, my team, I oversee HR operations and talent acquisition, and we, like a lot of other businesses, have slowed down our hiring. And so a lot of my talent act team is focused on hiring goals, and you see a lot of their goals are at risk, right? Because you can't measure time to fill if you're not filling any positions. And so, you know, there's impacts like that that are made. But I think at the root of OKRs, the one thing I've always taken away from that is the ability, one of Formstack's culture values is be agile and iterate. And I think OKRs work really well there, because you're not saying set a goal and then you're stuck with that goal for the rest of the quarter, right? You learn things, you adapt, you learn that's not going to work, and how can you pivot? And so for us, it's that tolerance and I'll say giving grace and understanding where people aren't able to necessarily achieve the goals they set out to at the beginning of the quarter, but they've since learned some things and they can realign back to what our vision is and what our mission is and what our strategies are to achieve our business goals over the course of a year. I think Joe mentioned this earlier with transparent communication, but I think being a remote first organization, one of our culture values is transparent communication. Ally and OKRs are definitely tools in our arsenal that help us do that effectively and consistently, regardless of where you are and how you get work done. The biggest thing that I personally love about Ally is that you can very quickly get context where it was missing before. So people that are active users and they're checking in, you understand why something's at risk or why something's behind, or you know, someone has commented on something and they need help from someone else. It's sort of providing those springboards to communication and more communication points than we had before. So I would say, like, Ally kind of came in at a good time for us too when it comes to OKRs amidst all of this.
Thank you for sharing that. I really enjoyed hearing your response there, especially the one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that you're exactly right. I think OKRs are a great way to at least provide that strategic clarity to the organization. So in these fast changing times, while we may not have the goals set down to the specific KPI, at least being very transparent and clear about the direction that the organization is taking and articulating the strategy that we are following is very important. And that's a tremendous value that OKRs are bringing. Thank you for calling that out. And I'd love to pick your brain offline on the templates and other things that you were describing on how you use OKRs and how you share them across the organization.
Absolutely. I'd love to share.
And anything else from Ashish, Joe, or Miranda? We are coming up on about 45 minutes, but is there anything else you would like to share or with each other or with the audience in how you are actually using OKRs, and how is COVID making it more interesting or difficult or easier? I
guess one of the things that I'll share, because like I said, we're probably 18 months into our OKR journey, is we don't have 100%. We have 100% of employees using Ally to be able to see all the company's goals and OKRs. But unless you're the direct owner of a company level objective that directly ties to the strategy, we don't force OKRs on everyone. And we've gone through. We've thought about both sides of this, like, right, the nirvana of having every employee in the organization owning OKRs and laddering them up to the strategy. But we've opted for, this is a much lower overhead. And through this approach, actually, we have organizations, groups within the organization, just naturally adopting OKRs. They either feel left out because something wasn't, asked of them, or managers are like, wow, I see how well this is working to get the company aligned to what we're trying to do. I want to adopt this more fully in my group. And that, I feel like that's a question that, or how our approach to that is something that might be helpful to others out there. So I want to be sure to note it.
And Joe, maybe just building on that, I'd love to pick your, and of course, Vetri and Miranda's brain on the one challenge, not challenge, but I guess the one thing that we are coming up against is, so we have a bunch of smart folks across the organization, and they've taken to OKRs and the concept very quickly, and now they're all keen to set their own, OKR goals that ladder up to the company goals. But how do you build the muscle in an organization on setting smart smart and achievable goals? Like what sort of how do you go about doing that?
I would say you have to teach the skill and then allow people to set really crappy OKRs and learn from that experience and build on that skill. I think expecting perfection at first is just not realistic. I would say too that if you are, so one thing that's worked for us at Formstack is at an org level, we'll set OKRs, and then team owners will are responsible for setting team level OKRs. They then give that information and that vision and those objectives to their frontline managers and ask them to set OKRs. So there's that real bottoms up approach for us, right? We only talk about the top 20% of the organization and what we set for OKRs. And then we're allowing teams to learn and to talk with each other and to, work through goals that may not be that great in an effort to get them better the next quarter. So I think some of it's trial and error, some of it's training, setting those right expectations, and some of it is just a tolerance for knowing that not everybody's going to have perfect goals, but it's going to be better the next quarter.
Makes sense.
I agree with that. One of the things I'd add is we make sure that the company level OKRs are as tight as possible, and that's where we'll focus the energy. And then outside of that, to Miranda's point, we'll coach people. But actually the best thing that we found is at the end of the quarter, when you knew going into the quarter, you didn't, that wasn't the right goal, you use that as the learning opportunity, because that's where things will click for folks. So at the end of every quarter, we make sure we go through every OKR and then work with folks where they were, fell short from a setting perspective.
I completely agree. That is the model we see as well, much like closer to what Miranda said. Training certainly helps a lot, but what we have seen is it typically seems to take 2 OKR cycles, 2 cranks to get people into build the muscle. What we have found is even when the OKR is not really well written, it still actually seems to have a really positive impact, right? Just because your metrics are not perfect does not mean that they're not that great, right? I mean, even with poorly written OKRs, we see that people actually are getting into the habit of the cadence, the transparency. You get to see the other aspects. Then in a couple of cranks, couple of cycles, people actually start writing great OKRs.
Yeah, I would say too, the one thing that the framework that I've tried to use with my team is you're going to have those OKRs that you don't feel great about, they're just business as usual. They're things that you just have to get done, and it's unfortunate, but pick one thing that you're passionate about. Pick one thing that you want to improve and make that an OKR for the quarter. So you're getting that personal development aspect along with helping the company achieve their goals. You've got something that at the end of a quarter, you can say, I got that done. And that was something I was really excited to do. And it went really well, or it didn't go really well. I think that kind of creates an excitement about setting future OKRs when you feel like you've got kind of a personal stake in the matter as well.
I love that. No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Awesome. I want to just thank you for your time. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot. And I would love to have you back at another time with more questions, and we can share more information with each other.
Thank you very much for having us. So nice to meet you.
Thank you.